The perfect model of a war horse. But I must now tell who Comet was. For to a cavalry officer in active service, his horse is his second self, his companion and friend, upon whom his very life may depend. A few days before leaving home, the horse I had showed symptoms of weakness about the eyes, and I had to look around for another. The supply of good animals in the county had been diminished by the pick having been bought up by the members of our company, so my father-in-law, Mr. Robertson, agreed to let me have Comet, an animal of his own rearing, and I executed my note at 60 days for his price. But after the horse bore me so gallantly in the battle of the 21st of July, he canceled the note and sent it back to me, asking me to accept Comet as a present from him. Comet was by Mr. T.L. Preston's horse, Hamlet, out of a daughter of prima donna belonging to Mr. Robertson, and was consequently of the best blood in Virginia. He was a dark mahogany bay, almost brown, with black mane, tail, and legs, and a small white star in his forehead. Great eyes standing out like those of a deer, small, delicate muzzle, delicate ears in which you could see the veins, and which were constantly in motion with every thought which passed through his mind, small and beautiful feet, and legs as hard as the bone itself. He was completely and powerfully built, his actions superb, head and tail carried high in the air, and had a way of tossing his head and champing his bit and tossing the foam over his breast that set your blood to tingling in sympathy with his spirit. When we halted in towns, people would collect around to admire his beauty. One evening, Colonel Stuart and myself were riding out together, and then he said, "Well, Blackford, that is a perfect model of a war horse." A fence as high as his withers, he would take me over like a bird. His beauty and strength were equaled by his mental and moral qualities. Comet was a horse of high order and as gallant a gentleman in his feelings as ever wore a horse's hide. The winning ways he had, the case with which he would learn anything, and his strong attachments were very remarkable. When other horses were crowding around an exhausted pump or hydrant trough awaiting the scanty flow, Comet will put his mouth to the spout and drink his fill. When I would be eating on the march, his eyes would watch me, and if I did not soon lean forward and hand him a taste, he would stop deliberately and reach his mouth up for his share. Nothing seemed to come amiss. Bread, crackers, meat, sugar, fruit, all seemed to be relished. Sometimes I could tie the halter strap to my leg and lie down to sleep while he would gaze around, step over me, or lie down by me without ever treading on me. Sometimes, when he would lie down, he would lay his head in an affectionate, if uncomfortable manner upon me. And though it was disagreeable, I could never have the heart to push it off. I had taught him to pull my handkerchief out of my pocket and take my hat off to look for sugar, and the trick amused people who did not know what he was after, which was a secret between Comet and me. On July 18th, 1861, near Winchester, Colonel Jeb Stuart, Blackford, with the first elements of the 1st Virginia Cavalry Regiment, along with the first members of the Stonewall Brigade of then Colonel Thomas Jonathan Jackson, not yet dubbed Stonewall, were all ordered by General Joseph Johnston to quick march east to Manassas Junction, where a battle was forming, the first of any scale in the Civil War. Colonel Jackson's regiments remained prone as a strong Federal force edged closer and closer, protected by skillfully handled artillery. More troops were closing in from the regiments of the Zouaves from New York as Jackson's left flank became threatened. The officers of the 33rd Virginia Infantry, unordered, charged the battery from there, disabling it briefly, just as Stuart, Blackford, and their mounted regiments swarmed upon the Zouaves, starting the beginnings of what became a massive reversal of fortunes and a rout of the Federal Army. Blackford recalled, waving his saber, Stuart ordered a charge, but instantly pulled up and called a halt, and turning to me said, "Blackford, are those our men or the enemy?" I said I could not tell, but just then, however, all doubt was removed by the appearance of their colors emerging from the road, the stars and stripes. I shall never forget the feelings with which I regarded this emblem of our country, so long beloved and now seen for the first time in the hands of a mortal foe. But there was no time for sentiment then. The instant the flag appeared, Stuart ordered the charge, and at them we went like an arrow from a bow. Half the distance was passed before they saw the avalanche coming upon them, but then they came to a front face, a long line of bright muskets, and leveled. A sheet of red flame gleamed, and we could see no more. Captain Welby Carter's horse sprang forward and rolled over dead, almost in front of Comet, so that a less active animal would have been thrown down, but Comet recovered himself and cleared the struggling horse and his rider. The smoke which wrapped them from our sight also hid us from them, and thinking perhaps that we had been swept away by the volley, they, instead of coming to a charge bayonet, lowered their pieces to load, and in this position we struck them. The tremendous impetus of horses at full speed broke through and scattered their line like chaff before the wind. As the scarlet line appeared through the smoke, when within a couple of horses' lengths of them, I leaned down with my carbine cocked, thumb to hammer and forefinger on trigger, and fixed my eye on a tall fella I saw would be the one my course would place in the right position for the carbine. While the man next to him in front of the horse, I would have to leave to Comet. I then plunged the spurs into Comet's flanks, and he evidently thought I wanted him to jump over the strange-looking wall I was riding him at, for he rose to make the leap, but he was too close and going too fast to rise higher than the breast of the man, and he struck him on the chest, rolling him over and over under his hoof and knocking him about 10 feet backwards, depriving him of all further interest in subsequent proceedings. As Comet rose to make the leap, I leaned down from the saddle, rammed the muzzle of the carbine into the stomach of my man, and pulled the trigger. I could not help feeling a little sorry for that fella as he lifted his handsome face to mine while he tried to get his bayonet up to meet me, but he was too slow. Just beyond their line was a fence, and Comet, exasperated to frenzy by the unusual applications of the spur, was almost beyond my control and entirely beyond the control of one hand, so I had to drop the carbine in its sling and use both hands to swing him away from the fence, which he seemed bent on clearing. The field beyond was filled with their troops, and if he had gone over, there would have been small chance for return. With both hands, I managed to turn the horse enough to bring him up to the fence so obliquely that even he did not like to attempt, and came around. The effect of our fire was nonetheless destructive and materially delayed the extension of their flank at a time when delay was of vital importance. But for our charge and the fire of these guns, there can be no question that the flank of Jackson's stone wall would have been turned before Early arrived with his brigade, in which case the day would have been lost.